American brand Warrior have been causing all sorts of trouble in the world of football boots recently. First last year they brought power with the Screamer, then it was control with the Gambler, and now they're bringing the heat. More specifically, the Superheat, designed to be their first statement speed boot. These cleats are designed to give you optimum traction and a running shoe-like fit and feel because the whole boot is based on mesh. Everyone seems to be getting on that mesh hype at the moment. We've seen Nike build Nike skin off of a mesh last. We've seen Adidas use it on the Nitro Charge, but Warrior might be the first we've seen to fuse it with other materials and use it all over the boot. How does it perform? Well, let's find out. As the name suggests, Warrior have designed this up with 3 separate layers. The first is Neo Web, and Neo Web is this more kind of traditional looking mesh that runs all the way throughout the boot, right down into the toes. Now the Neo Web, as you'd expect, is very, very soft. It delivers on Warrior's promise of a really running shoe / trainer-like fit. One of the cool things about it is that it folds, it creases, it does whatever you want. You know, in this rear section of the boot, aside from a surprisingly sturdy heel counter, is that you can pull those laces as tight or as loose as you want. There's a load of give in there thanks to that Neo Web. Now, as we leave the midfoot and heel, you're going to come through to the TPU Nano Cradle. Now, TPU is thermopolyurethane. This is the same material that's used on a lot of sole plates for football boots, and even though it's used in a very thin sort of microfilm sense here, it does feel quite stiff, especially when compared to the mesh of the rest of the boot. When you're breaking these in for the first time, this heel section and the midfoot is going to give you no bother whatsoever. They are absolutely lovely in this part of the foot. However, as you get to the front of the boot where the TPU Nano Cradle takes over, you're going to find that there's a little bit of pressure there. The reason being is you pull the mesh nice and tight, but when this bit at the front doesn't kind of give as much as the rest of the boot, you'll find that it does just sort of create a little bit of pressure. People with narrow feet are really, really going to enjoy this boot because they're just going to be able to pull them as snug as they want and they're going to deliver a phenomenal fit. However, people with wider feet are just going to have to make note that this sole plate is kind of narrow, the rest of the boot isn't going to stretch in this 4-foot area. And the final part of the Tri-Fusion skin is going to take us nicely into the performance section of the review. This is OrganiTouch. This is a micro thin film across the toe of the boot that kind of takes on these unusual little triangle motifs. The reason is that, as you can imagine, with a TPU sort of secondary layer, is that you need something that gives a little bit of grip for a natural feel when the weather starts getting wet or you're generally playing in kind of bad conditions. Much like the speed control texture on the Vapor or the Sprint Web on the last few Adi Zeros, I quite like the OrganiTouch. It delivers that nice sense of friction on the ball, whether you're striking, taking the ball down, or making micro sort of adjustments on the ball as you're running through. And speaking of running through, that's what you'd expect to be doing in the Superheat as a speed boot. Now these are a little bit over 200 grams compared to the incredible lightweight boots that we've seen come out of Adidas, Nike and Mizuno recently. So they're a little bit heavier, but the idea is that they deliver a more snug fit, making them more like a track shoe for improved acceleration. It's like Nike used to say on some of their old campaigns, it's not about lightweight, it's about right weight. You know, they've made the boots as light as possible, but they've still infused them with enough tech to give you traction and support, and that's, in theory, what makes you faster rather than a lighter boot. Now, as a speed boot, these do feel quite nice on the feet. As I mentioned, you can get that midfoot heel and laces really snug in the front of the boot. Now, that means that the traction plate, which you'll notice is the same war deck as the Gambler, means that you're really sort of pinned into the boot. You know, it's Nike's founder Bill Bowerman used to say the ideal running shoe would be one where he could basically just put nails in the bottom of the athlete's foot, getting them close to the ground. Now, these are very much on that ethos. The sole plate is super thin, super low profile, and the mesh allows you to get really sort of into that sole plate with a really tight central lacing system. That central lacing system also creates a nice boot with which to shoot and pass. As I mentioned, the contrast between the firmer front of the boot and the softer rear means that you get this nice sort of soft instep area with which to play passes and generally get a nice feel for the ball. When you're shooting and you're moving using something more towards the front, you're going to get that ping that you used to get with boots like the Nike Superfly. It's back here on the Superheat, so if you miss that on from your synthetic boots, which are now moving towards being something more like leather, then the Superheat's are the boot for you if you like to shoot like that. If you like something that's supportive, and as I mentioned, I keep saying the word ping, if you like a lot of ping on your shots when you catch them, you're going to find that here on the Superheat. But if you want something that's kind of going to collapse around your toes over time and generally make it more barefoot, that's something that you're not going to get on the Superheat, ever. The Superheat is a football boot that I couldn't recommend just to anyone walking down the street. If you've had trouble with finding boots that accommodate a wider midfoot in the past, or you've had a lot of trouble with heel blisters, then the Superheat is really going to help you out with that. The mesh here is phenomenal, and it kind of gives you access to speed boots because traditionally they're very narrow in the heel. The new Adizero was a great example of that. Other than that, attackers and wingers are going to find a lot of joy in this combination of comfort in the heel that will keep you comfortable for 90 minutes, whilst this synthetic forefoot gives you a lovely surface to ping crosses and shots and free kicks off of. Otherwise, the Superheat is the very definition of a Marmite boot. You're either going to love them or you're not. And that's about it from me here on Footy-Boots.com's YouTube channel, but you're more than welcome to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, Instagram, and always the main site where you can get the latest product news on football boots, shirts, and just about everything else in the world of football. Until next time, this has been Kyle from Footy-Boots.com, signing out.
Thanks to Warrior Football, we've also got a pair of Superheat Pro to give away to anyone watching. If you're interested in entering, it could not be easier. Just drop us a note in the comment section below, leaving your preferred boot size and country of residence, and we'll randomly pick a winner who will be informed by the 7th of March 2014. For full terms and conditions, head to footyboots.com, and last of all, good luck.